I wanted to make him happy, but I wanted him to be monogamous with me. I didn't necessarily want to be monogamous. I just wanted him to want to be monogamous with me.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
What is that face for?
Just talk. Talk.
Talk. Welcome to episode 81. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an interview with Jim and Karen. Super fun interview, super fun couple.
Yeah, they actually met at a sex club.
Yep. Like
the day after she left her husband.
Yeah.
Basically.
Not quite, but close.
Essentially, yes. And have been together ever since. It's a crazy, awesome story. So give it a listen if you want.
Yeah,
you want.
You want to do it. You want to listen. Anyway, couple quick announcements, then we'll get into the show.
We're hitting the road again.
We are. So we have some travel plans for this fall, and we wanted to announce them so that if anyone is in the area, we'd love to meet people. We're going to be in New York City the last week of September / first week of October.
Yeah, for
about a week.
For about 4, 5, 6 days-ish.
And then...
because we're en route to...
Boston area.
Boston adjacent.
Yeah. And we'll be doing some house sitting, actually, in the Boston area for the month of October. So
there might be some meet and greets out there, or at least some reach out to us and we can get a beer.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So... we'd love to hear from anybody in the areas that will be.
Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. That's better. Some other things to talk about.
1 condoms. We haven't mentioned them in a little while, and we just...
This is just a reminder that you can save 10% off of...
your condom purchase using the condom code.
using the condom. If you're not following the condom code, you're doing it wrong.
Using the offer code Emma. And just a quick note, 1 Condoms does a really neat thing too. They have custom fit condoms with their My One Condom line.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We use them. We love them. Well, I use them technically. We love them, and we've been told. Actually, when we were at the Club Euphoria foam party a couple weeks ago, we had some people telling us how much they loved them. So, just check them out. You can save 10%. We don't necessarily get an affiliate kickback for them, but it's just something that they were willing to offer us for you. Plus, they've given us lots of free condoms. So.
Yeah. That we've given away.
Support them because it's an awesome company and they're doing really good stuff. So
yes,
do that.
And finally, you can find show notes for each week's episode, as well as a list of resources, and contact us all on our website, which is normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
And one other final thing, at the last week's episode with Norm, he talked about a sort of a presentation that he's having about polyamory in the American financial system, presented in the greater DC area in September. And the dates that were given were incorrect. It was not the 22nd, but it is September 26th. So go update your calendars.
That'll be updated. If you're in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, check it out.
Yep. And if you're not, there's 3 airports nearby that are all easy to get into.
That's also true.
So, yeah, go check that out. Check out Norm's episode as well. It was an awesome conversation, and he's a fantastic source of knowledge.
Yes, that's true. So now, moment we've all been waiting for, let's go talk to Jim and Karen.
Just kidding.
Wait, one second.
One last thing. We just wanted to say thank you to everybody who was on the video Q&A last Wednesday evening. We had about 13 people, so 30% growth over the previous one.
Yeah.
And we just want to say thank you to everybody who came out and chatted with us and supported us. And if you join the Patreon, you obviously can't be there because it already happened, but the recording is up and waiting for you to download.
And we will have our next one in September.
Yep, that's all. Now we'll go, for real. No more interruptions.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you both for coming on the show. We've got Jim and Karen. Met you through the Cassidy machine. So
You call everything machines.
not everything, just things that are machines.
Machines are good.
Yeah. So maybe, do you mind introducing each other or yourselves so we know who we're talking about or who we're talking to, and so do the listeners?
Absolutely, be happy to. So I'm Jim, and we have
Karen.
And we both we live on the West Coast, and we've been together for about 4.5 years now. And we actually met in the lifestyle. So that's one of our taglines is we met at a sex club. So
We can get more into that in a minute.
Sure.
It's been great. Our name on a lot of the sites is Effortless Couple, and that's because it was so effortless for so long. But of course, there's always the humps, but it's still pretty effortless compared to a lot of relationships. So we're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you are roughly, I'm going to guess, 25.
And you've learned to go low, man.
I learned
That's kudos.
And I'm 48, Karen.
52.
Okay. That was my next guess.
You were so close, though.
I was
You could have guessed 50 and been right in the middle.
I was just trying to give people like an idea of who we're talking to.
I know.
So thank you for sharing that. You don't have to, but you kind of.
No, it's good.
You put him on the spot.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, there we are.
Right. And so, all right.
Well, before we jump to the beginning, how do you, what is your relationship dynamic right now? Like, what do you consider yourself as far as, non-monogamy goes?
Yeah, I mean, we're swingers.
He's more of a swinger. I found out I'm a little more towards poly, but we have an open relationship that is constantly changing.
Yeah,
Perfect. That's what we are.
Yeah.
Well, more or less.
The open relationship part. Yes.
We've decided recently.
It changes so fast.
Yeah.
And
it does.
you take turns and you come back. And so open fits best.
Yeah, and that's kind of, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's kind of what we found helps make everything work for us is being able to be fluid with each other as things, because not expecting everything to stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect. Well, so you're hanging out at the sex club and then you meet each other. Why were you at the sex club other than for sex?
I'll go first.
All right, it's a fun story.
I had decided to leave my husband of 27 years, and I was wild and crazy. I met him at 15, had been with him my entire life, basically. So I went to the adult toy store, and I was buying some stuff and getting some outfits, and I was all excited, and I was very discouraged, however, with the whole internet dating. And they were like, oh, you have to go to the club. And I was like, club? What do you mean? And they were like, there's a sex club. And I was like, what? There's a club for that? And they were like, yes, you would do perfect. You will love it. And I was like, I think I'm a little old. And they're like, no, nope, don't even, nope. And they gave me the name of the club, and I checked it out. I got online. I literally read every single line of the rules, the agreements. And I was like, I didn't even know about the lifestyle. I didn't know I'd heard about it before when we were younger, but no bells were going off or anything. And so I put on a disguise and I walked in there, and I had so much fun. Oh my God. And so I thought I was finished for the night, and there's food. So I was like, well, I need to load up on some food before I head home.
And so before you get to that, let me say how I got there, because you're about to get to this.
Yep.
So This was my third. So this was her first time there, as she mentioned, and she'd never been there before and didn't know anything about it. It was my third time there, and I'd been there twice on a date with a married lady that met her husband the first time I went there, and then I was on my third date with her at this club. And so I was also new to the lifestyle. I'd been in
But he knew what it was. He went into it approaching it.
Yeah, I went into it knowing what it was. So I went after it. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I was new to it. I was experimenting. It was my third week in the lifestyle. When I was
with a date though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there with a date, and so about the time she's going to the buffet to eat because she's hungry, it was a little after midnight, and my date has like clockwork. She turns into a pumpkin around midnight and has to go home.
She's one of our dearest friends now.
Yeah. Yeah. So around midnight, I walked her to her car, and she went home, and then I stayed at the club. It was only midnight, and the club's open until 4 a.m. So I'm like, I'm not going home yet. So I went back in, and I went to the buffet to eat, and she noticed me, and
my head spun around.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and then I chickened out. I was, you know, I'm actually a very shy person, and people don't realize that because I don't act shy, but I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't go over there. And so I just took my food and went past him to another table, and he spun around in his chair. And I was like, oh.
Literally, I did the spin around, and I did the Joey and said, how you doing? Something like that. But I just said, hello there, and stuff. And so we chatted for a while, wound up dancing.
Our magical night began, and the guy that I had been with came over to check on me, and he was like, oh, you're done eating? You said you promised me a dance. I was like, sure, we can go dance, I guess. And here I am, still monogamous in my mind, and this is awkward. I like this guy. This guy's okay, but I promised him. And
you had just met this other guy that night too.
Yeah.
So she had already played with them earlier.
And I was like, and I promised him a dance. So I looked at Jim. I was like, would you like to dance with us? And the other guy was, that's great. So we all got on the dance floor, and we were dancing. And finally, the guy comes up and he says, "Can we share you tonight?" And I just looked at him and went, "Nope." Nope. And he was like, "Let me leave you two alone." And I was like, all right. And then we were together.
Yeah. So we had a magical night with lots of.
Can we give more details?
Sure, you want some details? It was pretty hot. There's on the second floor there's an orgy bed, and with a bar all the way around it where you can like stand and people can watch, and there's like action going on the orgy bed.
Or porn screen.
And a porn screen, but there was action, live action going on the orgy bed, and so we walked up there first, and I put her up against the orgy bed, and I said, I just want you to watch, and I started playing with her from behind while she was watching. That went on for 20 minutes.
It was awesome. Then we moved down to the couches, and we had an experience there. And then he proceeds, let's get a room. I'm like, okay.
Well, actually, the way that went after on the couch while she says, "Do you want to fuck?" I'm like, yes.
So he proceeds to say, "Hey, can my friends join us?"
Yeah. So
I'm thinking, okay, just met this guy I really liking.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm going big tonight. So.
Yeah, so our first time together was a foursome with another couple. Now, these friends...
You just met.
I just met that night, earlier that night.
So this is all a very fast-paced evening.
Very fast-paced.
This is midnight till 4 a.m.
Yeah. So we shut the place down in that room till 4 a.m. or whatever with that couple and stuff, and that was quite the experience.
It was awesome.
Yeah, and she told you she was in costume. She was wearing a wig to disguise herself. The wig came off like when I wasn't looking, and I turned around. She didn't have a wig anymore.
It was like, what?
I was thought it was the mustache, the fake mustache with the glasses.
Yeah. Exactly, and the glasses.
I wore like extra big glasses, and my hair. It was just I just a little bit of a disguise.
Yeah. So we've literally been together ever since the day we met. That night,
unless he's been traveling,
other than me being gone on trips or stuff like that, traveling.
But going into that night, though, neither one of you were looking for another relationship.
No.
Oh, I
in
told
fact, we
him.
told each other.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, we both. Yeah, we were both like I had just started this experiment, and we clearly clicked, had great chemistry, and so like we exchanged numbers, and we're like you want to.
I told him he could be Thursday and Sunday.
Exactly. She literally told me that.
I was trying to fill up my book for every night of the week.
Yeah. And so she.
And I didn't want the same person all the time. I just left a 27-year relationship that I had since I was 15. I was not willing to jump back into one.
And she had not had sex for
3 years.
3 years. At the end, towards the end.
Well, and that was the question I was going to ask was, so Karen, like you went from being married for 27 years and being together with somebody since you were 15. So this was essentially your first sexual experience out.
I did have a few, like for a couple, 3 weeks before Jim, that I wasn't trying to hide from my husband, but I hadn't decided to leave him yet. I just couldn't keep going without the sex. And I didn't like being unfaithful. And the night before I met Jim, I did tell him that I was leaving him. And then I met Jim. So we're good there.
So you told him you were leaving him, and then you went to the sex club.
The next day. Like,
look, pretty much.
Wow. So how like it sounds like it was kind of mind blowing, right? That you went to go to the sex toy store and wound up leaving knowing all of a sudden that there's a club, and then like I just like that series of circumstances is pretty wild. So it's like you're married for 27 years, you decide you're going to leave your husband, you still haven't told him.
Well, I had told him before I went to the sex club.
Right, but not before you learned about it.
No.
And then you're like, I'm leaving you, and by the way, tomorrow I'm going to the sex club. and then the next day you meet Jim, and nothing. You haven't been apart since.
Yeah.
No.
And
it was very fast paced. It was mind-blowingly fast. I don't necessarily recommend it.
No, it is not the way to go for people. It just happened, and we just hung on.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was a crazy ride from the beginning, and it certainly calmed down, but it was definitely a crazy ride, and faster pace than I recommend anyone going. But for us, that's just the way it happened. It just flowed. It was everything felt natural. Everything felt
for a while.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But for a while, I mean, the way it all started, everything was just very fluid and
my BFF says that if I hadn't met Jim and found the lifestyle with him, because all my friends love Jim. Jim is like the most wonderful man in the world. Everyone loves Jim. And my friends instantly loved him. And they were scared I was going to screw it up because I didn't want a relationship. I tried every way in the world to get rid of him. And I just would list everything wrong with me. I gave him that. And then I took him to meet my family. And he still stayed. And so my BFF says if I hadn't been for the lifestyle, I would have never stayed with Jim because I was wanting to have fun. I didn't want to be monogamous. I didn't know about swinging really, but I knew I didn't want to be with one person and be monogamous. And I didn't want another relationship.
Yeah. And how about you, Jim? Did you come from a long-term relationship as well?
Yeah. I had been married for 20 years, but I had been, by the time I met you, I had been divorced for a little over 3 years, and been separated for 5 or 6 years total before that. So I'd been out for a while and stuff, and then I had one girlfriend before I met Karen in between the divorce and meeting her,
And she's the one that told him about the sex club.
Yes. The ex-girlfriend's the one that told me about this sex club but never took me there, never went there.
She didn't want to go. She was just...
She kind of dangled it out there like a carrot and everything, and to help me put up with her craziness. And
like, oh, by the way, this exists.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take you there sometime.
Right.
But so that's how I heard about the club. I would have never known it existed or even thought to look for it and stuff. And so after I broke up with her and stuff, a couple months later, I went and checked it out. And then I found actually AFF, the website and stuff, and that's how I met the couple that I wound up going on the dates with the wife a few times.
And so, but neither of you had explored or even like considered non-monogamy up until the
No.
point.
So like, yeah, a little more about us, I guess. Background is like a lot of your listeners I've heard on the podcast came from very conservative background, very conservative Christian, and grew up pretty much born in a church pew.
I was always a rebel though, and always an open mind.
She was more of a.
I never judge.
But still, both very conservative people.
Myself.
Yeah, but at least conservative-minded. Monogamy was the only right way to do things. Had a very strict monogamous marriage, and never cheated on my wife. And then when it all blew up, this whole thing, just like I said, I didn't think about it till after I was with this one girlfriend for a while, and just kind of unfolded. And she told me about this, and I'm like, well, I've always been very sexual, but
me too. The sexual part wasn't new for me either. It wasn't like, I found my sexuality. I've always been very sexual.
Yeah, and my ex-wife wasn't, and so that's kind of why that fell apart. And like, well, I need to check this out and stuff. And I was in that club for 5 minutes, and I literally said to myself, "These are my people. This is where I belong. This is where I've always belonged. Within 5 minutes, I knew." So, but I was studying to be a pastor, and I went to Bible college, and
wow,
I was an elder in the church, and I was very conservative until after the divorce.
Yeah, but then you said when you go into the club, you realize like these are my people. It must have been somewhat of a relief too.
It was an extremely liberating experience. Probably the most liberating. I mean, talk about spend my life telling people how to be born again and all this stuff in the church and stuff.
Let me tell you now how to be born again.
I was going to say, now you got the real answer.
This was
the real born again. This is truly a born again experience, because it was very liberating, and a huge amount of just guilt and just wrong thinking just washed away off my shoulders. It's like, this is okay. I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. And
you're doing everything ethically and respectful.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Because I've never been about lying, and never.
You can't do that.
I suck at lying. I try it sometimes, and it never goes well. Never goes well.
So you said everything was gravy and going great, and Karen, you jumped in and said, up until a point. So It sounds like something happened.
Things moved very fast. You were moving full speed ahead.
We were together the first year, and we moved in together after 2 months or so. Yeah. And we got tired of the two rents.
You moved in together after 2 months?
Something like that.
Well, we were paying 2 rents, and we had yet to spend a night apart.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
This is a financial decision.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you for making a financial decision. Okay.
Yeah, and
I hear the craziness in it myself. Yeah. I do get that.
In our head, our justification was, okay, we're in our mid to late 40s. We know what we want, and we know we've been down. Yeah. It's not like we're teenagers moving in together. Okay.
No.
Our families were a little freaked.
Yeah. No judgment here. Just I was.
No. It is very. Everything is very fast paced.
So he almost 1 year after we met proposed to me, and it proposed to me in the club in the cage with all of our friends there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, it was awesome.
At the club where we met.
Got engaged in the cage.
Yep.
And we were still I hadn't really started to struggle yet. I started struggling within about 2 years of us being together. The whole non-monogamy versus monogamy. We had never been like just us. We had never been, we tried monogamy. Like, okay, we're going to like just be us for the month. It never worked. I mean, we'd be like at a party and we're like, hey, can we talk? And because our rules aren't hard and fast. We have boundaries that are always open to changing, and you can always ask.
We have 2 rules that never change.
From the beginning.
From day one, we've had 2 rules that don't change. Everything else is flexible. The rule number 1 is communicate, and which communicate has a lot that goes with it: openly, honestly, listening, all that stuff. And then the second rule is priority, which we made up our own word. So
communicate and priority.
Communicate and priority,
and then we'll be okay.
And so priority just simply means that each of us should always feel like we're the priority in the relationship. And if you don't feel like the priority at any time, refer back to rule number 1, and communicate and stuff. So those rules never change. Everything else is negotiable and flexible. I mean, but you can't break rules without communicating. You can't change. Well, that would be breaking a rule. You can change rules, but you have to communicate and talk about it first and agree on it. Obviously, you can't just change them willy nilly whenever you want.
So you kind of live by you've lived by that whole mentality since the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. And so my whole mentality started shifting a little bit back to, I was being drawn back into the monogamy world. And I was a little nervous, and I wanted to make him happy, but I wanted him to be monogamous with me. I didn't necessarily want to be monogamous. I just wanted him to want to be monogamous with me. Which I know it's crazy. I have a very rational mind and I have a very irrational part sometimes. And when they battle, I hate it. And I kind of put it to him. I said, if you had to choose between lifestyle or me, what would you choose? And he was cooking dinner and he just looked at me and he goes, well, there's a little build up to it, but he just looked at me and goes, I'd hate to have to choose right now because I love you, but I don't want to go back to being monogamous. And I was just like, for me, okay.
For me, I was trying to explain it as that this isn't just me having a good time and going crazy and so much. For me, this is who I am. This is in my DNA. And I just started this experiment, a couple years before, and I'm not ready to end it,
right?
And whatnot and stuff. So it's like, please don't put me in that position.
So one part of my brain heard I'd rather have a lifestyle than you, which was kind of that, but not really. And I was hurt. And what's so funny is I didn't really want monogamy. I didn't want to say I'd be with this person the rest of my life. I just wanted him to lie to me and say he would stay.
But I don't lie.
But he doesn't lie.
And I said, now we can take a break. I'm okay with taking a break that has a end date, has whatever, it's finite amount of time, and not where I'm not talking years. Maybe let's take a break for a month or two or whatever, and come back and reevaluate and stuff. I'm totally okay with that, but don't ask me to just.
But my mind was changing in certain ways, and I was having some bad experiences in lifestyle. And as you know, when you hit those bad experiences, you kind of feel like, I just want to be done with this.
Yeah.
And, guys having too much to drink, we call it DID,
distracted.
DDS, distracted dick syndrome, and the new stuff. And at first I was very forward because that's the way I overcome my shyness. I become very forward and got a few, oh yeah, no. And a little bit of rejection here or there. And he's just like going strong. A little, I was feeling I was just, it wasn't for me because it wasn't working. But in our time, and we went to a counselor, this lifestyle counselor, and he said, your biggest things is you both want to please each other too much. And he said, you got to quit worrying about hurting each other's feelings. So he said, Karen, you've got to be honest. You've got to quit saying things are okay when they're not. And because all along with Jim, when he would ask to do something, he's always very respectful. He always asks, and hey, what about this? And we try new things. If it doesn't work, then we come back and we say, that didn't work for us. And we're okay with that. We re-navigate. But I had stopped communicating as well because
you didn't want to disappoint.
I didn't want to disappoint him. And it just started building so much resentment up in me. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I didn't want to be monogamous for real. I mean, really, even though I said, let's try monogamy. And I'm not like him. And that's when I listened to your podcast. And oh my God, I heard all these other stories. And it's okay for us to be different and do it at different paces. We respect each other. We love each other. We want to be together. And so we communicate better. I've learned to say no. And it's hard sometimes. It's like, I don't want to, I want to be the cool kid. I want to give him pleasure. He doesn't have a jealous bone in his body. He's very open and honest, and for me, it was a big thing to traverse.
But a key point she made, and I don't want it to be glossed over, is literally your guys' podcast had a big impact on our relationship because it gave her. I mean, that's where the epiphany for her came. That like, okay, it's okay that we work at different speeds, and doesn't mean he loves.
It's okay for me to say no. I'm not okay with that.
It doesn't mean he loves me less, and it's okay for me to say no when I need to say no, and he's not going to judge that or be upset with that because that's always been our rule. You can always say no, and no questions asked.
Yeah, but feeling comfortable doing that.
But actually doing it is a whole lot different
hard.
thing. Yeah.
It's so hard. Because then you're like a nag all the time, like, no.
Well, and that's the other part of the rule is when you say yes, you better mean it because we're trusting each other to be honest. So when she said it, she tells me yes, and I go and do it, everything. And then like that's one thing that was really hard is because she was telling me yes, when inside she was thinking no. And so I was going and taking the yes and doing my thing. And I didn't know for a while that there was a problem until
it just
yeah.
But I learned to say no much better, and he doesn't care. It's okay with no. He's not mad at me.
I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and I would even argue, because I can relate very strongly to probably what Jim's feeling here is not only are you okay with it, but you prefer it. If it's a no, you would so much rather have her say no than have her say yes and not mean it.
Right. No, absolutely. I do not want that resentment built up. It's not worth it. Mm-hmm. It's not, because we always like say, for me, I need her to be clear with that because when we're at an event, at a club, at a house party stuff, my kryptonite is pussy vision.
It's a real thing.
I get pussy vision, and
he's locked and loaded,
and the whole world is tuned out.
You've never seen anything like it.
So we have to make sure we're clear about how we're operating before we go. Are we sticking together? Are we going to float apart? Are we going to what's our operating rules for the night?
Right.
And we talk about that before we get there.
Yeah.
And it's important that I have that in my head before I get there because I know if I don't,
right.
So it goes back to communication.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, can you talk a little, Karen, about like what steps you took to get to where you were comfortable saying no? Like how did you make that shift? Because I venture to guess you're not the only one who's had that issue.
Well, one thing is the therapist telling me it's okay to say no. You don't have to quit. You quit trying to please him 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, I am a pleaser. So I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
But you talk about
read a book.
Yeah, I'm talking a couple days before that. Because actually before we got the therapist, we kind of had our big...
I had my epiphany after listening to your show, one of your interviews. And
we had a big conversation before we got the therapist and worked a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
But I listened to like 3 hours of your podcast to all I didn't, that day when I started, I didn't eat, sleep or whatever. It was just like, I was at work and I was like, people leave me alone. And after listening to all these other stories about how people have had their different journeys, and quite often we've wondered, how do people bring that up when they've been together forever to start? And so for us, it was kind of easy because we started in it, but we didn't have that foundation.
Yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah.
And so I think us actually hitting a hump, having some difficulty in our effortless relationship actually helped me.
Yeah.
Learn there were limits, and he's still going to be around if I say no.
Yeah. Right.
And how he reacted when I would go there was so okay. All this was just on me. I realized it was what I was making out of it.
Yeah.
And again, just hearing everyone else's stories and how they evolved, I was like, oh, I'm okay. So we have two different styles, and this was part of our thing. Jim's full on swinger, And after listening to several of your stories, found out I'm actually demisexual.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I can have a wild hair one night, and I enjoyed the 2 years that it was wild and crazy. It was wild and crazy. It was fun. And all of a sudden I needed more.
Yeah. And
so realizing that there were other people that needed more, and it wasn't just all about jumping in, grabbing the puck and getting out, notch, check. It helped me feel better and realize I can do this how I need to do it. He will help me. And since then, we've always made great friends in this lifestyle. We're surrounded by lifestyle friends, but it really helped just listening to others. And there's a book the therapist gave me, was Mastery of Love. Mm-hmm. And basically it teaches you how to love yourself and you can't love anyone else till you love yourself. And very simple. It goes back in the old Toltec principles of ancient Mexico. Mm-hmm. And it really has helped me a lot.
Awesome. Then we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, and thank you. I know thank you for saying how much hearing everyone's stories has helped you, because I know that, that's our goal. That's why we're doing this podcast. But this podcast would not be what it is without people sharing their stories. That's the whole point. And it's awesome when you hear that how much those other stories have impacted people like you and other people too. And then you come on and share yours too. So.
Well, he was so excited. I walked in the door and I was like, I found a podcast. I've never listened to a podcast before. I said, I got on podcast today on the drive home because I had a long drive, and oh my gosh, listen to what I found. And I was so excited. He was just like, okay. But we also had a move in our relationship, like a physical move. Uh-huh. And a couple of times, and we relocated and we came back to here. We were kind of out away from where we live, where we were from, kind of isolated a little bit. And, things just were rocky and weren't sure where we were going forward and what we were going to do. And realizing I didn't have to figure it all out right then was helpful.
Yeah.
And now we do it so differently than we used to.
We've definitely slowed down a great deal.
Yeah.
When we met, we were literally at the club 3 nights a week at least, and everything. We wound up getting VIP membership, so we could just go in whenever we want.
You might as well have stopped paying one rent and just lived at the club.
Exactly.
So we were like extremely active, and we're still very active, but nothing like we were.
Right.
I'm very selective.
I was going to say, how has it shifted? Like, what do you do differently now, and do you explore it separately, like on your own?
We're broaching that a little bit. He is all about finding me someone that I can have as a secondary. And again, we do it different. I would not be okay with him having a secondary yet. He has 2 girlfriends. 3, excuse me. And I haven't met the 3rd one. That's another story. The 2, I love them. We're all together when we're together, and it's a beautiful thing. We have so much between the 3 of us. And if he wants to have a date with one of them, I don't care. I love them. It's so different now. If he asked me, I met a girl at the club the other night, can I have a date? And I'd be like, are you crazy?
Yeah. So originally that was how you were like. You're like, that was
we
was
didn't
not
date
okay.
other people. Yeah. Only we played separately, but we were always together in it.
And so that's definitely has shifted then. If he has girlfriends and separate people, but
yeah.
You're also, each other. You're all friends. You're all very close.
Yes.
It's kind of a big family.
Now I am with the women too, though, and there's a couple of times he's introduced me to women, and I'm like, no, I don't know if it's I just don't like them or I'm not attracted to them, so he doesn't need to bring them. Because I've also found out in this journey that I'm bisexual, and had no clue.
Yeah, she fought it for a while. She's like, no, I'm not.
No, things would happen. I'm like, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And so, we've changed a lot in the last few months and having a great time. We're looking forward. We're actually out in the area that we're at now, trying to meet some new couples together. And I've tried to meet guys. It's just so hard people think it's hard to be a single guy. I think a single woman has it harder.
In what sense? That you're sorting through a larger volume
Yes.
of
Yes.
Just a lot of toes to get
the
to
vetting.
The vetting.
Yeah.
The vetting is exhausting, and I just don't have the energy.
Yeah.
When I have somebody so wonderful at home, I catch myself. I'll try to like get into it, and I'm like, I'm gonna see if I can find somebody. I get exhausted, and I look at Jim. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. No. But
And who knows? Maybe someday you will meet somebody.
Maybe I'm saying open, but not looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that's just going to happen naturally or organically, not something that's forced or sought after. This is something that we're going to be at a party, at a house party or something. You're going to hit it off with some guy, and you'll be like, "Oh, hey, I really like this guy. I'd like to see him again." And then, right. Second time will turn into third time. And fourth and,
right. Yeah. Naturally. Definitely. So, Jim, how has all of the transition been for you? Because obviously, there's been some major changes, and you, I'm sure, wanted Karen to tell you what was going on in her brain, which would probably, she was not at a point necessarily to do that all the time. So I'm sure that there was a lot of conversations. But how have you felt throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, when it was touch and go, I don't know if touch and go is the right word, but when we didn't
realize how touch and go it was.
Yeah, because we were kind of just continuing to do our thing, and I didn't know what was going on underneath for a while. And then when she talked to me about it and brought up this stuff, I'm like, oh no. I was terrified early. I was terrified we weren't going to work or something wasn't going to, we were going to have to break up or something was going to happen. And I was terrified because I loved her, but I had to be honest with myself about the lifestyle and what it meant to me and how I felt about it. This isn't just a party game. This is a part of my life, now. So, it was a lot of conflict, and that was tough for me because I do not like confrontation. I'm not a confrontational
Neither
person.
one of us do.
So for me to be able to tell her that, I can't tell you that right now I would pick you over this. I really don't want to have to make that decision, and to actually be able to be honest like that was a huge growth step for me. And I couldn't have done it with anyone else because I've never been in a relationship where I was that comfortable or that felt, safe with her to tell her the truth and stuff. Because previous relationship, it was the complete opposite. So,
and we both said this from the beginning that if we're not making each other happy, and we're not going to change for each other, we're not changing, and if the other person's not happy or if we're not happy, we don't need to be in this. So it'd be hard, gosh, but that was our mindset from the beginning because both of us, having come from very long relationships, weren't ready to jump into a relationship, and it's been wild and crazy. And so where we are now, he just went to Israel for business and met a woman his first night there.
Yeah. Which never happens.
Never happens on a business trip.
No, I've been traveling for 17 years and never. That was the second time I ever hooked up successfully with a woman, with her permission, of course. Second time I ever hooked up with a woman successfully at just a regular vanilla bar and stuff. And that second time was within the last 6-month period. Yeah. So before the previous 40 something years, I never successfully done that. And of course, when I was married before, I just didn't try that. I didn't do that stuff. But anyway.
So you had not set up anything going on this trip. You just had met that woman.
It just happened. Yeah. And we have this thing where he always had this like fantasy. He wanted to take a woman with him when he's traveling, and I can't go because I work. And I'm like, no, you're not taking one of our friends. No, you're not taking some stranger. No.
That was out of bounds.
But while you're there, if you meet somebody, that's okay. So he met this woman in Israel, had a fantastic time being shown around by a local, and then he had another trip come up for Italy.
So this comes to the learning experience that happened recently that I was telling you about.
Okay. So the Israel trip was first. You met this woman, had a great time.
This was at the end of April.
Okay.
And I met her, and we had a fantastic time. And surprisingly, afterwards, we kept in touch pretty regularly after the trip. And I found out shortly after the Israel trip that I was going to have to go to Italy for another trip for some business and stuff. And so for her, it's like a 3-hour plane ride.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a big deal and everything. And I've been talking to her about that, and she says, "Well, I'll meet you there." I'm like, okay.
Uh-oh, I gotta tell Karen.
Then I gotta talk to Karen about it, you know, and everything. So
this is a gray area.
This was a gray area. So I'm thinking, well, I can ask her about it. I think she might be okay with this because this is a very different situation. This is not me bringing someone from the local area with me on the trip. This is someone that I met in another country, and you know,
they may never see each other again.
Maybe the only other chance we ever get to see each other again. So I'm thinking, I think she might be okay with this, but I'm going to wait till this trip is happening for sure. I'm not going to bring this up until the trip is happening for sure. So for a little while, this was in my head. I'm like, it took a little while to confirm that the trip was going to happen, and then once it got confirmed, I'm like, okay. So I told the lady, I told her that, okay, I'm going to ask Karen everything. I don't know what she's going to say. Whatever she says goes, but we'll see and everything. So I asked Karen, and she was like,
he texted me. I highly recommend text for communicating difficult situations.
I was like, there's a lot of thought put into whether I text or talk to the person. I think I'm going to text.
Well, you can carefully say it, like you can word it how you want to word it,
and you can erase and
go back
until you see
until you're like, okay, this is perfect, because you know that you're communicating something very important, and you need to be very clear and very precise in your language. So yeah, it worked very well doing the text to communicate. She didn't bat an eyelash.
When she said, I was like, of course, that is fine.
Like within 5 seconds, of course.
And he's like, is that a real no? And I was like, he goes, is that a real yes? And I was like, yes, that is a real yes. And so I was excited for him. Jim I learned compersion, listening the phrase compersion. Jim is full of compersion. He is you couldn't have a person that experiences it more. I am not. And I try. It's, again, wanted to be a cool kid, but no. And when he talked for the first time, I was like, oh, that is awesome. I think, oh my God, that will be great. I'm happy for you that you get to see her again and you get to have all this. And
because you had heard all about what had happened, how much fun they had
I was full steam ahead. And then 2 nights before he leaves, I went, wait a minute, is she staying in your room?
Yeah.
And it kind of like, then it's kind of like,
to get her own hotel room.
It made sense. And I just realized it hit me. And I was like, oh, they're going to be waking up in the mornings together. They're going to be doing this together. Like spending all the time didn't bother me. But there's, I heard a guy today say on something I was listening to, he goes, I messed up I shared the bathrobe with the woman. It was like, there's certain things you don't do. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, I can do this. I'm going to be good. I can do this. And I did for the first 3.5, 4 nights. And then I was like, I am ready for this to be over with. I wasn't mad at him. I was glad he was having a good time. I was just missing him so bad.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't a longer trip than most of my other. It was just a day or two longer than most of my normal trips, and that was because of the international travel. But I mean, a lot of my trips go for most of the full work week and stuff. So this wasn't unusual. But me being with someone like that this whole time is where
it was hard.
By the end of the 3rd night or whatever, she's like, "Okay, I'm ready for this to be done."
Still okay with everything.
But she didn't give me I could tell she was very kind of short in our conversations and stuff towards the end, and I was wondering if something was wrong, but she wouldn't give a hint that anything was wrong until I got.
Well, I'm gonna throw out an idea for future trips like this. Maybe just don't have the woman stay for the whole duration.
Exactly, we learned that.
That's one of the lessons we learned.
One of the lessons we learned. Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have learned that if you hadn't been able to communicate that.
Exactly.
Right.
And he came home, and we were too busy the first 24 hours to talk about the trip. We had other things going on, and we went for a walk, and we talked about the trip. And once he shared the experiences with me and what they did, I'm not talking about just sexually. I'm talking about spending their time together. And
I gave her a very detailed account.
And
I did awesome for a guy because you guys are really bad about details. At least I am.
But the details are what counts.
I know. You're holding out on me, dude.
Yeah, so I gave her a very detailed account of the week, and
then I was good again.
Yeah, and she experienced some conversion, and she really enjoyed it. And stuff.
Yeah.
And we talked, but we definitely learned that, and we had never, neither of us had ever done this before, and so it was a new experience for both of us. And we learned a little bit, like I said, don't make it so long, and also communicating while I'm gone and while I'm on the trip and stuff. I mean, I communicate as much or more than I normally do on a trip, but when we're on the phone, she felt like I sounded rushed because I'm in the hotel room with the lady and stuff, and I'm going to call Karen and check in with her and tell her and stuff, but still felt a little awkward. It was a new experience, felt a little awkward.
And I heard that.
I'm calling my girlfriend while I'm in this room with this other woman.
Right. Right.
And on this trip, and we're doing this new thing. So it just all felt a little awkward, and I think she heard that in my voice while I'm talking to her on the phone and stuff, and so that maybe made her feel a little nervous too or something.
But it just goes back to communication. Yeah. If things aren't right, communicate. And even when things are great, communicate that. Let the other person know what you're happy about.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Communication doesn't always have to be negative.
Yeah.
Just like, I've heard from a lot of other people, their rides home after an experience are awesome. You chit chat and you communicate about what happened. And when you share that with other people and they enjoy it, it just furthers the enjoyment.
Yeah. Those last couple of days of the trip, she had worked herself up into a frenzy in her head and was actually not upset with me.
Not upset with you at all. Just I was imagining all these other things Well, because I'm not a neat freak. I can be sloppy. This was my biggest thing. I was like, oh my God, I bet you she's a neat freak and her shit's not all over the hotel room and he's loving it. That was my biggest
But meanwhile, he's having to walk down to the hotel lobby to use the bathroom because he's...
Exactly.
I can't do here.
Need some privacy.
Yeah. It's so true.
Looking back, how we've done everything, I don't recommend someone meeting someone at a sex club and starting a relationship with them. But
I'm not sure that's such a problem. It's just
I was going to say, I don't know that I disagree. You two seem to be having a hell of a good time.
Yeah, no, I don't think meeting a sex club I think it was just we went so fast, lightning fast, and everything we did was like gangbusters. We were
balls to the wall.
The wall.
Well, and you, Karen, had just were just coming out of your marriage too.
Yeah.
But I want to argue the point that there's always people saying oh, you can't do it now, it's a rebound, you can't do it now because of this.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you just did it, and look, you're fucking happy, you're enjoying yourself. Yeah, there was some hiccups, but you're gonna have those anyways, and at least you went for it and you were happy. And most people would say well, you just told your husband yesterday you were getting a divorce. So maybe wait a week before you go to the sex club. But you're like, fuck that rule. I'm going tonight or tomorrow or whatever.
I'm not good with rules in general.
Yeah, and I mean, in context, like I said, they hadn't had sex in almost 3 years, and the marriage had been dead long before.
But there was another guy right before Jim, and what ended it for him when I told him I'm leaving my husband, he was in a similar situation as me. We kind of hooked up on Craigslist. I miss Craigslist, by the way. And we hit it off great too. And I think he was the rebound dude. And when I told him I was leaving my husband, I was going to leave my husband, he got all freaked out and was like, oh, I'm like, not for you, dude. No, not for you.
I'm leaving you too.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to be monogamous with him. And I was like, still didn't know anything about non-monogamy, but I knew I wasn't ready to commit to it.
Yeah.
And then I met Jim the next week.
Yeah.
Well, it was serendipitous fate.
Yeah.
Fate, if
yeah.
you will.
Yeah, really, truly. like I say, we like our profile name as effortless couple on all those sites and everything, and we were always very proud of that because it really was so effortless at the beginning, and like even though it hasn't always been effortless compared to most relationships we see and relationships we've experienced is still very effortless.
Yeah.
Nothing is totally effortless.
Yeah. Nothing is.
For a long time, I kept waiting for him to get mad because I had done too much or I took things, but no, he was always just okay with everything. Easy.
How did you tell your friends and family you met?
I was just going to ask the same question.
We got a story.
The PG version.
We met at another buffet.
We met at a singles mixer. At a buffet at a singles mixer, which is technically was accurate.
It's
just
not
wasn't
too far.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
We keep it as close to the truth. We try to keep everything truthful without revealing too much.
And we got engaged in the club next to the restaurant. We got engaged in the place next to where we actually got engaged to, because the pictures, everybody's like, "Oh, you were so and so." I was like, "Yeah, that's it." You can't take pictures in the club. Right. So we all went out, our friends and us went out on the sidewalks to take pictures, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you were at so and so," which was the place we were standing in front of next door.
Yeah.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, was it totally?
You got engaged at a Payless shoe store. Amazing.
They were having 50% off shoes. Well, I said, "Hey."
It was BOGO week, so it's fine.
Do I get you? All right.
So nowadays, do any of your family and friends know?
My vanilla BFF that I met after I moved out here I'm actually from Mississippi originally. And when I moved out here, I met her like within 2 weeks, and we have been super tight. And she's known from the beginning. She doesn't necessarily approve. She doesn't get it, but she knows I'm happy, and that's what counts for her. I had an aunt that moved out here, and there were things we were doing. I felt bad that we weren't inviting her. She's not that much older than me. And I just was honest with her. I was just like, "Okay, let me tell you what's going on. Jim and I are in an open relationship." And she's a hippie at heart. She's from those days. So I was like, "You remember free love?" And she was like, "Oh, that is so incredible that y'all have that." I've got nothing but some support from her.
Oh, that's good.
All of our other friends are in lifestyle. Yeah. That's another thing. We met all of our friends together. We had friends from before, but our friends that we met together are truly great.
And I didn't really have a whole lot of, all my friends were really in the church. And when I kind of left the church life, I kind of lost them in the deal.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any friends from like high school or college or anything like that I stayed buddies with. It was another casualty of my previous marriage and stuff. So I mean, like Karen said, all our friends are friends from the lifestyle. I have a sister-in-law that knows about how we met, and that's it. Yeah. And none of my other family knows.
And still, like I mentioned earlier with you guys, we're still trying to decide. Our kids are grown. We go out in the same town, and now that we're going out with other people occasionally, I'm almost kind of like, do we tell them? Do we not tell them? We're still trying to figure it out, because I don't want them seeing us and being disappointed in one or the other. Like,
or showing up at the club.
Yeah, I have an arrangement. I have an arrangement with the girl. Be notified. I will be notified.
At the front door.
Smart.
Someone will come find me right away.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
To know the ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you sound like you've listened to the show in the past.
Yes.
So we do maybe have time for like a blooper. And I know you've told us some crazy stuff that's happened, but there's got to be a good, funny blooper.
Okay. Do the Florida story.
The Florida story.
Okay. There's a couple bloopers, but
there's so many. But we went to Florida, and we thought we'd hit one of the clubs up there when we were there, and we did. It was a slow night, and we found some other couples about our age, and they were rather newbies, which I'm better with newbies now than I used to be. And they were one of my reasons not to do newbies. The 6 of us were all playing, having fun. Then we found out these people have not communicated well beforehand. And he's actually having sex with me. His wife's trying to talk in his ear, and he buzzes her off with her. He waves her off with the hand. Of course, that didn't go well.
And she was
just wanting to know if it was okay for her to play.
Oh, okay.
She was trying to find out. She's trying to ask him, is it okay if I play? Because she's playing, flirting and stuff with.
They're all soft swap
with myself and a couple other people, but there's no intercourse going on yet.
Until me and him did. I didn't know that they had not communicated.
Yeah, so she's wanting to go the rest of the way and have sex, and she's asking her husband, "Is this okay?" And he's like, he's not hearing her, and he's trying to focus with Karen, and so he's just like, "No." And so she gets up and leaves.
Storms out of the room, and it's just all upset. And I'm like, dude.
And then he gets up and
I'm tapping him on the shoulder, dude. And he's like, oh, she'll be fine. I'm like, no.
You need to go.
Stop. And I'm like, Jim. And like, he's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, Jim. Jim's like over there, moved on. By then he comes over there, and I'm like, dude, you have to stop. And he's like, dude, you have to stop. And they got up and they had their moment. But that was the craziest thing for me. I was laying there. The wife runs out in tears, basically. I mean, she looks like she's about to burst out in tears, and I'm mortified. Guy, he wasn't like against my will or anything, but the casual, no, dude, you need to go check on your wife. I'm having this conversation. And he's like, oh, she's good. And I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah. This needs to stop. I don't care if she's good or not. Now we need to stop.
Like, she's fine. She's fine.
Yeah, when I laughed about that all the way home, I was like, that's why you don't run off with newbies. And he's like, well, they were the only one there.
Yeah, but I will say you probably taught them a valuable lesson.
Communicate.
Yeah. So
beforehand.
So I think it's good.
Or if you made the mistake of not telling it to communicate beforehand, it's okay to do it in the moment if you have to, but listen to your partner, talk to your partner.
Exactly.
And maybe if you have time for one more quick one.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is the distracted dick syndrome story. Okay. So for all the guys, because I hear this on your podcast all the time, people guys talking about having trouble getting up in a situation.
It's a real issue.
It's a real thing. It has nothing to do with ED. It has nothing to do with ED. And so we're at one of the clubs and with a group of friends again, and there's like I think there's 4 couples. I think 4 couples. So there's 8 of us, and we've been dancing and stuff and having fun, and we're ready to go into a room and go play. Well, this particular club doesn't have very big rooms and doesn't have any really big spaces, but they have some bigger spaces in open areas, orgy beds and stuff where it could fit our group. So like, okay, we'll go to the orgy bed because it's the only place big enough for all of us to play together. Everything. So we go up to the orgy bed and stuff, and there's a few clubs, and there's like 3 main clubs in the area. And this is one of the nicer clubs. That the one we met at was actually shut down during this period of time. They got shut down and then reopened. So we're at this.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yeah. So we're at this other club that's not so nice, and their rules. Most of the clubs have the same rules. Don't touch without asking. No means no. Don't ask twice. Don't be creepy. All that kind of stuff. They all have the same rules, but they don't always enforce it the same. And so this club they didn't have as much volunteer staff and other people like the other clubs to enforce rules and stuff. So we're all trying to play on this orgy bed and stuff, and we immediately get surrounded by a bunch of guys single men whacking off, and the thing. And if the other clubs, that wouldn't happen, and the guys are not even allowed to have themselves out and open unless they're in a room playing and stuff.
Unless they've been invited.
Right.
Yeah. And when you're in an orgy bed area, you're expected. People are obviously allowed to watch. You're in an open area, and you're basically giving them consent to watch you if you're going to play in this open area.
Sure.
But that doesn't give them the okay to approach you. And what else was going on is, we're all trying to have sex on this bed, and this guy starts reaching out and trying to touch Karen. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I says, you can't just, you have to ask. You can't just touch. And he's like, and other people are like, hey, you're on the open in the orgy bed. I said,
You're fair game.
I mean, that means you can watch. That does not mean you can touch.
No shit.
Yeah.
And everything. So I mean, so it was very. This whole thing was extremely distracting. And immediately, I was like, couldn't. Like, and it was hopeless. I mean,
he cigared over the rest of
cigar. Yeah, I just had cigar because it wasn't happening. It's like all the guys whacking off around us and all this pressure. It was just like.
And me and our friends, we all just carried on, and he stood our guard for the night. Bless his heart.
Yeah, and so it was.
We didn't ask him to, but you just do the. And he just went ahead and did it.
So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone, because I'm known for being able to go all night and as much as necessary.
Yeah, well, I think being in the splash zone of 7 dudes is enough to put you on edge.
Well, the other one
having
was
that pressure.
Yeah, the other one was an orgy of 20-somethings in the beds next to us. That was a different night.
I was wondering which one you were going. There's several of those stories.
Hey, well, it happens to everybody, and I think that's an awesome blooper / learning moment for anybody listening that maybe this is their first time hearing this show or anything about this, and they're like, well, I don't think I could perform under those circumstances. And
you can't.
You might not be able to. And that's
you might not,
It doesn't make you weird or anything wrong with you. It's just, your brain and your dick are very much attached.
Yeah.
My biggest thing, if I could tell all the guys out there, is if you are struggling, don't go to your head. Stay out of your head. Just have fun. You can please a woman without a dick. You can have a great time. And it might happen later if you stay out of your head.
If you focus on, I would say the same thing. You focus on pleasing the woman. Don't worry about yourself. You're going to have fun. Just focus on pleasing the woman and let the rest take care of itself.
If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You can both still have fun.
Yep. I would agree completely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And since you talked a lot about being in the clubs and that atmosphere, I was curious if you could touch on how you handle safety in that atmosphere and those discussions.
We totally condom play. If there's condoms, if there's play, there's condoms. We haven't, and none of our friends have used oral barriers. I've heard a lot about that lately, and that's one of my things that got in my head. I'm a germaphobe. So people are like, how can you play? And I was like, sometimes it's hard, but I'm not totally obsessed, but it gets in my head. So I am interested in the oral barriers. That's something I want to research soon. But we do get tested. We usually shift off like every 3 to 6 months, one of us gets tested.
By the way, use your coupon.
Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I actually won their gift card on their drawing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
So we weren't just making that up. We actually sent those out to people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, that's huge for us. We definitely, it was even huge when we got together. We both went and got tested before we took condom off with each other. And that was a huge deal. And if we invite others, I don't know if we will ever, I will never say never in this.
Yeah.
I don't see us fluid bonding with other people, but never say never.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have that conversation with couples before you go play, like in the club? I know that can be really intimidating for people in like a loud environment to have that conversation. So do you have any tips or just
Again, we were such newbies. We didn't have a book to read. We had friends that had been doing this for a while, but it was very different for them. We didn't know that was something you could even do until we started listening to the show. Now that's a part of our conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for bringing that up.
Of course.
And I have learned if people aren't comfortable having that conversation, then that's on them, not us.
Yeah.
And typically, even if the conversation doesn't happen beforehand, it's just when you go into the room, you grab the condom, and there's condoms on the beds, and there's condoms there. I usually have my own condoms in my pocket, and just first thing to do is grab the condom. Like this is not making it an option. Just here we go.
Yeah.
wear one around as a practice all day long, just so you get used to the
Well,
feeling.
that's another thing for guys out there that say, I can't fuck with the condom on. Practice with your partner.
Yeah.
Don't
Excellent
have
advice.
sex for 2 weeks without a condom. I mean, use a condom every single time with your partner for 2 weeks and you'll be fine.
Yep.
You can learn to use a condom. You can learn to get it up and have sex with a condom. It just takes practice.
And most people playing in, we don't use a condom necessarily for oral sex, so you still can have that experience, and when you go to actual fucking, so
Yeah,
sure.
Before you.
Well, and that's that's everyone's decision to make, whether you want to like that. We're all at different levels of risk depending in life in general, and that's just the level that you're making that decision to do, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, that's new navigation material for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
That actually hits on one of my other policies, a policy we typically have with other couples and stuff is, we were talking about everyone has different boundaries and different levels, and that's true throughout the lifestyle. People, soft. We had labels for some of it: soft swap, full swap, same room sex, all this other stuff. But even within there's different levels, and so it's like typically whenever we're with people, we talk about, especially if we're like on a date and we're purposely going out with a couple or something, we'll talk about each other's boundaries and stuff, and you always go with the boundaries that are the most restrictive. Whoever has the most restrictive boundaries, those are the ones you go with. And
for sure.
Your boundaries our boundaries are typically much less restrictive than people we go out with.
Another thing I've learned from you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it's so true. And you could all have a good time at the level that's most comfortable for everybody. And you don't, just because your boundaries may not be as strict doesn't mean that you still can't have a good night.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can have that kind of, like you said, if you're in a kick group or something with these people, like you can throw that conversation out there days ahead of time, and then it gives people a chance to talk about it if they haven't previously talked about it. And then you can come back when you meet in person. You can be like, hey, we talked about this. I just wanted to check in, make sure everything is still the same as it was a week ago when we chatted. And then it's a much simpler conversation, and it gives people the chance to speak freely about it. And then, and you're off and running.
I actually have a group of friends that play without protection. They're all friends. They play together a lot. And their thing is, we're safer than being monogamous and having a one-night stand with somebody.
For sure.
And they're open about it. Yeah. And they get tested regularly. And
they're more aware of their bodies and the testing and all that.
Not my cup of tea.
Compared to a married couple where one of them just winds up cheating.
And they have a valid point too. I mean, that's it. I think it's you're in a way better situation knowing your status, knowing what you want to be your risk level, and communicating that. And that's.
But they know our rules and our boundaries, and they know that's not something we're going to do. And they're very respectful of that. So
for sure.
Like I said, so there's a case where our boundaries are more restrictive than theirs.
Yeah. Well, anything else? Do you have any more questions?
I have one. Before you answer the anything else you wanted to say, when is the wedding? Is there a date?
Oh.
Not yet.
It's on hold. Jim, it took me almost the whole 4 years to get my divorce. I'm finally divorced.
And that just happened like within a couple months.
There was some complications with the divorce. Not like me changing my mind or anything, just the actual.
Yeah, you seem pretty sure.
Yeah, the actual procedures took a while. And meanwhile, he's decided if he's not sure, he wants to get married again.
Marriage itself, right? I'm not sure how I feel about how important the actual marriage thing is to me. I'm with her. I'm committed to her. This is my forever partner and stuff. But it's not. I'm not saying I won't say never. It's just when I asked her to marry me, that was only.
It's a year into our relationship. He was still.
And I just started a non-monogamy, and Yeah. Anyway, so my whole
Marriage hasn't been a big deal to me. I said I would never do it again, but I accepted his proposal, and I thought if I was going to marry anybody, it would be him.
Yeah. If I marry exactly, and if I marry someone, it's you. It's not.
So neither one of us are like,
I want to marry someone else.
Neither one of us like we have to get married.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're still figuring that out. We don't know if we're going to get married or not. I just want a big party. So
well, you can do that.
I was like, you can throw a big party without the marriage party.
We have lots of parties. Yeah.
And we'll be there. We'll send you swag.
We used to hold huge parties. But
yeah.
Excellent.
Since we've moved, we have a little bitty place. So, but we used to have parties where people came from 3 different states.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was fun. So.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. But I wanted to make a quick comment on your marriage thing because it demonstrates to people that you do not have to get married. Like that it is a choice. And I say that like a lot of people realize that, but a lot of people also just go through the motions and it's expected. It's like it's the next step. And
right. That's exactly where I was when I asked her to marry me. It was like, oh, I know this is the person I want to be with. This is the next step. This is what you do. Right. You propose and you get married because this is what you do. And I was still in that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even more so that you can't successfully navigate non-monogamy unless you're married. You know, you couldn't. So
that's just not true.
Yeah.
Not true. It's all a choice. Well.
Yeah, it's all a choice, and there's nothing wrong. Like there's nothing wrong with being married. We're married, but at the same time, you don't have to do that either.
Right.
But again, if you're not in a good place with your relationship, married or not married, non-monogamy is not necessarily. There are the exceptions to the rule that if this has actually brought them together. That's the exception to the rule. So married, not married, just have a solid relationship, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. We seem to agree with you a lot.
You bring up a lot of excellent points.
Thank you.
Was there anything else that you wanted to share? If you have any other resources that you mentioned the book, so definitely put that.
Mastery of Love. It's amazing, and
of course the Ethical Slut, which everyone is familiar with. But
and counseling, find a lifestyle counselor. If you're struggling with something, a third party that is neutral and wise and educated can help you so much. That's lifestyle friendly. Oh my God, just hearing that third person that has the education and the knowledge to help you through something is incredible. I mean, we laugh because we're the people a lot of our friends come to for that. And so we're like, well, who are we going to? A counselor. It was wonderful. And doesn't mean you have anything wrong. We're going to keep going every few months just to
check in.
Just check in and
keep the knife sharp, right? Yeah,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So don't be scared of counseling people, but you got to find someone friendly with the lifestyle. But
you don't want to walk into it being judged by
No, and if you do that, have that happen. Like, don't be afraid to change it. Yeah.
You can get a new counselor. It's okay.
Yeah. We talked about that on another interview we did too, and how. Thank you for bringing it up because it is so important.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like,
and you can Google it. You can Google
non-monogamy or open relationship.
Yeah, open relationship counselors or swinging counselors but you can find lifestyle friendly counselors. Hopefully, I don't know if you can in every city, but we were able to find it.
Yeah. If you're not in a city that you can find them, you can also, there's people that do online counseling.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Or if there's people in your community, in your area that are your lifestyle friends that are very much hooked in to the community or, larger, so we,
ask your friends.
Yeah.
They may know somebody.
Yeah, exactly. We're friends with the owners of a couple of the clubs and, we ask them because they're very connected. So we, you talk to them and say, hey, who do you recommend? And actually the person we went to was one of the people that was recommended by one of the club owners. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So use your resources, use your people.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, any final thoughts, parting words of wisdom?
We love you.
We love you guys.
Wow.
Well, thank you. We're excited to meet you both. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing it's amazing. We're always floored that people listen to us, but it is fun to talk
and then have them come.
Listen,
But you're so much cuter. You're so much more handsome.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
And I expected you to have curly hair for some reason.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I have the straightest hair ever.
I expected you to have curly hair for some reason with your personality, but you look great too. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no.
You're all right.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
She's kind of cute.
It is strange to see people when you hear voices for so long, you build up what they look like, and then you see them, it's different. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's it.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we will let you go and
Thank you.
enjoy your evening. We will do the same.
Yes.
It's bedtime here on the East
Yes.
Coast,
Yes.
Kind of. Yeah.
the East Coast time zone. And we will be in touch. Thank you again for everything. We appreciate
All
it.
right.
Bye.
Bye. Hello.
We're back again. As always, we're here. So,
One time, sometime we should not come back.
and just have it end.
Just end.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just ghost on these people.
That's not our style. Anyway, Jim and Karen had an amazing story, as you could tell, and we're super thankful that they were willing to come on and be so enthusiastic and fun on the podcast. Next week, we have
An interview, a
uh-huh.
conversation of sorts
Uh-huh.
with Matt and Jenna.
Yes.
Again, amazing story, and we're super happy that they reached out to us. They found us through the Instagram, which you can find us through at NNM Podcast.
That's correct. You can also find us on Twitter under that same screen name.
So with that in mind, maybe we should. One thing we'll mention, because you're still here, and you obviously some reason you listen to what we say.
Because they're going to email us and get free swag.
The other thing you can do, if you head over to a website called The Enclosed, they are a mail order subscription-based lingerie company.
Yes.
Again, this is not sponsored. They're not paying us to say this. They gave us some offer codes. One of them is Emma25, and you get $25 off any purchase. And if you happen to be in the Patreon group, you get $50 off with a secret code.
Yeah. And this is a really cool service, actually. They're a great company, and we did a little Q&A for them back a few months ago, and we'll have the links to that in our show notes. So they actually sent me a pair of underwear, too, and they're amazing, super comfortable. And
They look good, too,
Yeah, so
All right.
check them out.
Thank you for bearing with us, and me, mostly, and we will talk to you all in a week.
Bye, everyone.